So we've got, and welcoming those who are joining still. So cost, then we will do quality, then we will do resource management. So cost is a relatively shorter chapter. There's some mathematical stuff in earned value management. Quality management is a medium size. The number of processes is much less though. Cost has got only 4 processes. Quality has got only 3 processes, but quality management has got a lot of concepts. And when we go to resource management, it's a long one. It's got 6 processes to deal with, but those are easy. Once we move on to resource management, things start becoming easier. Yeah, resource, communication, stakeholder. These 3 are easier chapters. Of course, tomorrow we have got risk and procurement, which are again medium load chapters. Okay, let's pick up some speed for the day. Cost management. The main purpose is to estimate cost, create a budget, and based on the budget and estimates for different tasks, different activities, monitor and control the overall cost incurred in a project. Take corrective actions, take preventive actions. So plan cost management, estimate costs, determine budget, and control costs. These are the 4 processes. So the first 3 are planning, and the last one is monitoring and controlling. And many times, all these 1, 2, and 3 are done together. But we, as you know by now, we are doing one by one. And for the exam, you also have to know the sequence to determine the budget. First, the plan cost management should be done. Then estimation of cost based on the guideline from the management plan. And based on the various cost estimates, we may have to add them up and create a budget, a total cost. And then we can control cost. So we'll make it interactive today also. There are some cost management general concepts. Please study these trends afterwards once the course is over. Today we're going to understand the earned value management concept. So this is basically emerging trends of earned value management. You will not have questions, calculations questions on the emerging trends here. We need to understand thoroughly the current practice of earned value management. So once we do that, you may want to go back and then read these 3 lines here. Because the traditional value of the earned value analysis is having some challenges, or there are some contradictions, and some of the experts are proposing or beginning to propose a new methodology of earned value management. So those are not yet finalized. There are some white papers and research papers coming up, and maybe who knows, in a year or 2, the new trends will become a formal practice. Tailoring of estimating procedures, how the earned value can be done, that methodology can be tailored. Depending on agile or traditional, how the costing will be done, that can be tailored. What happens in agile? I don't know if some of you have been in agile projects. I know some of you are. How do we do agile costing? We'll touch upon that a little bit. Yeah. In traditional projects, as you can expect, costs will be predictable. We know exactly what we are going to deliver. Yeah, so we can predict the cost. But in agile, scope is not so clear. We have a vision though, we have an end goal approximate. We have a vision or image of what we are going to create, but we don't know exactly what will be created. And sometimes we may not know how much time it might take. Because the project cannot be closed until the value is delivered in agile projects. Therefore, so maybe we could only arrive at rough estimates, rough estimates in the beginning, so known as lightweight estimation. And as we move forward, oh sorry, maybe I have to unfreeze my screen, I think, just noticed. Yeah, if we arrive at lightweight estimates in the beginning, and afterwards as we move sprint by sprint, we may have detailed cost estimates for every sprint. So that's the approach here. It's like, finding the cost of a mountain, and as we move forward, determining the cost of each rock, and as we move forward, determining the cost of each sand particle, each small stone. That's how agile works. I've got a question from Kamal Sheikh. Any questions will come related to agile? There will be a few questions because these things are mentioned in the PMBOK guide, but they have not been dealt in detail. So basic questions will can come, not too much in depth. For example, what are requirements called in agile? User stories. What is a user story workshop? Remember, we went through the user stories workshop. just like joint application development. What is Kanban? What is iterative scheduling based on demand? That is a Scrum kind of process. So very high level questions you could get in all these topics. How is scope management done? Once again, user stories, sprints, product increments. What is agile lifecycle versus traditional lifecycle? These are the things you have to know. But from next year onwards, from January next year, agile questions and hybrid lifecycle questions will be 50% of the overall questions. Which means that if you're going to write the exam next year, you may have to study a lot more on agile, maybe even attend some other agile course. But PMI recommends the agile practice guide, which is attached along with the PMBOK even today. Though we don't use it today, but it comes attached with the PMBOK guide. You will have to read that completely. Planning overall guidance for cost management, meaning how do we estimate costs? How do we control costs? How does the project define the cost or manage the cost? How the cost baseline will be created? How the cost baseline will be modified or documented in a specific format? These are some of the things which can go into the cost management planning. Even things like where to get the funding from. Will the project be funded internally or by an external agency? Venture capital, from a bank, from the government, using subsidies, loans, all those things could be captured in a cost management plan. You could even capture things like profitability of a project, yeah. But then that might be secondary. As a project manager, you may have to understand some basic concepts like fixed costs, variable costs, direct costs, and indirect costs. I won't go into that in too much detail, but it'll help you as a manager as you progress in your career. Some of you may be already into costing. So if you know more about it, it'll help you when you're a senior project manager. So I won't dig into that right now, but I'm going to show you. I definitely have some information on that in my other presentation. If you look at my PMP explanations presentation in the shared drive, you will see this one. So got direct cost, indirect, overheads, fixed cost, and variable cost. So please study them. Yeah, while I'm going to skip all that right now. We may come back to this a little bit when we go to cost estimation. Yeah? In cost estimation, those things, ideas will automatically come up. And please feel free with questions generally around PMP. If you have heard something else in PMP, for example, I have this question from Venkatesh. Sir, what is sunk cost? Sunk means sinking, already gone, died. A sunk cost means a cost which has been incurred and it's a loss to the project. For example, IT people, if you have procured a software development tool, a toolkit, and if that toolkit is not a good one and you have to throw it away and get another software development toolkit, then the one which was thrown away is a sunk cost. Similarly, if you have procured a machinery for your project, and if the machinery is not sufficient or good enough for your project, then you can't use that machinery anymore. And so that becomes a sunk cost because you may have to just throw it. Well, if you can sell it again and retrieve the money, then it is not a sunk cost. But usually people will lose money which is something which is purchased without proper thinking. Yeah, that is known as sunk cost. And there are ways to deal with sunk cost actually. Maybe you could share that item with other departments and prevent the sinking of that cost so that somebody else might need it. Okay, so that's the sunk cost there. So plan cost management. Cost management plan is the key output on the right side with all the guidance there, methodologies, and how to report the cost can also be there in it. Though the cost reporting will also be mentioned in the communications plan. And you've got the project charter would be the key document input. We don't have to know the scope yet. We are not trying to estimate cost yet. We are only putting methodologies for cost estimation. Yeah? Therefore, we must know the size of the project as a whole, the overall objectives of the project. If these are more stringent objectives, we may need a more rigorous cost management plan. If the budget is tight, then we may need a more rigorous cost management plan. Therefore, various discussions, alternatives about cost management will have to be thought about. Inputs. Project charter has a summary budget. That's why it's important. Policies of the company, the OPA, cost policies, approval policies, industry-specific currency rates. Currency rates will influence. Those are part of the foreign exchange rates and currency rates, and the economic indicators will be part of the enterprise factors. When looking at alternatives, the project will think about funding options, make or buy, lease or rent, procure or in-house. And finally, this is what is included in the cost management plan. I already told you a few things reporting. I mentioned reporting will be clarified. Any procedures for approval of costs can also be mentioned, will be mentioned. The currencies will be mentioned, and also not only currencies, but actually this is non-currency, meaning a kilogram, how much cost per kilogram, rates can be mentioned. What are the labor rates for certain grades of people? That should also be mentioned in the cost management plan. Other procedures can be mentioned. A link to the WBS can be provided eventually. What are the control thresholds, meaning how much deviation is allowed? What happens if the cost is likely to exceed by 1%? What happens if the cost has exceeded by 2% or 1%? We need some rules. In some cases, sponsor approval might be required if the cost is going to exceed by 2%, yeah? Or it has already exceeded, it's a much worse scenario. So those rules must be provided. Major cost violation, minor cost violation, yeah, all that can be mentioned in these thresholds. How the performance will be measured, earned value management can also be there in the, and other metrics. You might be using other metrics in your own environment. You could use those metrics also. Okay, so with that, and lastly, you see two things here: level of precision and level of accuracy. There is a slight difference between the two, accuracy versus precision. And I want to ask you all a question. What is the difference here? What is precision? What is accuracy? They sound very similar, don't they? Okay, so let me. Yes, Venkatesh, thank you. Precision is how precise we are, meaning 2 decimals, for example. For example, the project budget is, or a task cost is 15,561.35 rupees. That's a very precise number. On the other hand, if I'm telling it's about 14,000 rupees, it's not so precise. Yeah? On the other hand, 14,000 could be more accurate than 15,000 something. So that's the difference between. So as Venkatesh has again, Sudarshan has mentioned this one. Thank you, Sudarshan. Accuracy is plus or minus say 10% in precision. Okay, let me clarify that to be more clear. Keep on trying meanwhile. There's definitely a difference between accuracy and precision. So as for Sudarshan, once again, accuracy plus or minus 10% in precision. Yes, I think that's correct. Yes, 10% in precision. To be more precise, we need to zoom into a certain number. Zoom into a certain number. And let's take an example actually to be very clear.